She was 5. It was 3. Yeah, but then bylaws. Remember? Yes, they do. 3. No, and she's missed 5. 1, 4. And 4.
Good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting of the Delta Township Board to order. Will board members and guests please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Bowen,
Present.
trustee Brewer,
Present.
trustee Cascarella,
Present.
trustee Mohica. Treasurer Fiedema. Clerk Clark is present, supervisor Fletcher.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you. A motion to excuse Treasurer Fiedel and Trustee Mohica.
So, support.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. We have the agenda before us. Any additions or deletions? If not, a motion to approve would be in order.
Supervisor Fletcher, I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
There is support. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. In your package, you have an update on both the water resource recovery facility and the Altium 3 plant on how construction is proceeding there. Public comment, anybody in the audience wish to speak this evening? And not seeing anyone from the public here tonight, we'll move down to the consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the board on items on our consent agenda this evening?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
There is support. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on approving the consent agenda?
Trustee Cascarella,
Yes.
trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Brewer,
Yes.
trustee Mohica, treasurer Fiedema. Clerk Clark is yes, supervisor Fletcher.
Yes.
You have motion carried.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we move down to the new items of business. We have one item number 10, the board and commissions appointments. These are all individuals who are currently serving and who have expressed interest in continuing to serve. So with that, I move that we approve the appointments. Is there support?
Support.
There is support. Any discussion? Beth?
I had a couple questions, excuse me, about the people who are here and being reappointed. Can you go through the list and tell me how long each person has served?
I don't know. Mary, do you have a list here?
It's on the website. I don't know if Mary put a packet in. But I can go to the website and I can tell you, not necessarily their start date, but
Mhm.
how many terms they've had.
Yeah. Anyway, while you're looking, because I believe we had a discussion one time before when we were appointing people to the planning commission about looking for ways to get new blood, new volunteers. And if there are people waiting in the wings to be appointed, and also Ms. Elsinga, when she was appointed to the CIA, we made a point of saying she's on the CIA, she's also on the planning commission. That takes up 2 spots that another citizen could take one of those 2. And when I look at the minutes of the meetings, I find that Ms. Elsinga missed 4 of 2022 meetings out of 10 for the planning commission, and she missed 3 of the CIA meetings. And so I'm just curious if, you know, if she feels that it's too much, if there are too many, or if we can, you know, take a little off her plate, ask another citizen to serve on the planning commission. Or, you know, we don't have CIA up tonight, but that's my question to the board.
Well, based on my conversation with her, she clearly is interested in continuing to serve. I know she had some periods where she had sick children and things like that caused her to miss, but we have, you know, board members here that also miss. As far as making new, bringing in new people. The last time we tried to do that, we had 2 meetings where I got vilified for it. So I'm bringing forward the people who wish to continue to serve. The board can do what they want, I guess, with the recommendations, but I'm just bringing forward those who are currently serving. If they wish to continue serving, I will put forward their name to allow them to continue. Then I guess the board can do as they please with it.
And I don't believe that we have anybody waiting
That's what I was gonna ask.
and planning commission. Well, most of ours do not. So.
Yeah.
And I'll just make the comment, I think it's a balancing and I don't know if we should have one set policy and, because there's certainly having served on the planning commission for several years, and on the ZBA and Sign Board of Appeals for several years now too. I definitely see that value of, those with more experience and having that continuity. It makes an incredible difference in the work that's done and, you can transition new people in. I'm certainly not being excluding in that regard, but there's that balance. I think that is real important to consider for all of our boards. And it's hard, sometimes can be very challenging finding people that are committed and willing to do that work,
Does
But,
the planning commission have bylaws like the CIA? Do they have anything that states attendance? Anything like that?
They have the Charter Township Act and the Planning Act, which governs their planning.
But that doesn't say how many meetings they have to go to or that are called into question like the CIA. Okay, that was my question.
So, yeah, my question is, and I think we talked about this a long time ago, it's always helpful to have their background. And I know these are people that are coming in again, but I like seeing the full package. So if we could go back to that, making sure that we have their background, their resume, and that sort of thing. I think it's always good for them to re-explain their interest in serving again. I
So
think
are you
that's helpful.
asking for a new application, a new resume versus a letter? What do you want to say?
The resume, if they could provide the resume, like a packet, this is who I am and why I'm interested in serving again. Just as if you're applying for any board, you have to put forth some effort on your own. And I'd like to see that with any candidates coming in. I appreciate them serving, I do, but it's helpful for us to know a little bit about them. Because some of them may have started before our terms began, and we were seeing more in the packets than I saw today. In this packet, so that's all my recommendation. I'm fine with moving forward.
Did you have something on yours?
Well, is there someone in particular you want to know how many terms they have?
My understanding is
Otherwise,
that
the whole list is
Yeah.
on the
On the website.
the website under it's boards and commissions, and then you go right to it. There's the list,
Well,
but I'm happy to
my
have it
understanding
up.
is Mr. McConnell has been on the planning commission for quite a long time. Yes, no,
Yes, he has 4+ terms.
4+ terms. And I know that there's at least one citizen, Dan Stockwell, who has applied to be on the planning commission within the past 2 years. So I do know that we have at least one citizen who has a background in township government. He was a township trustee in Bath Township before he moved to Delta Township. I think he would be a real asset to our citizen commissions.
I am too. That's why I was surprised when his appointment got rejected when I put it forward a couple years ago. Or a year
I think his app
It was
is
something else.
expired because they're only good for 24 months.
Other questions?
I just want to make a comment. I'm so not opposed to your thoughts of bringing in some new blood. I support that. I can't remember the circumstances around whatever went down the last time around, but I think it's refreshing to bring in people who are interested in serving. So I always ask too, is there a waiting list? And did we look at some of the other names who expressed an interest? I think it's great, Ken, that you'd want to bring in someone fresh. I support that. So I just want that on the record. I don't remember the circumstances because it must have been something special, but I am in support of bringing in new vision, new ideas.
It was when I tried to bring in Dan Stockwell instead of the kitty litter lady that ran for the Grand Lake School Board.
Well, it might have been about somebody else, but it was certainly not about Dan.
What?
I said it was certainly for me, not about Dan. I just want to make that
But I
clear.
agree that Dan was a wonderful person and would have been
Absolutely.
a wonderful appointment at the time, and to understand why somebody with Dan's values and backgrounds was rejected by this board in favor of Chip, who we now know exactly what her views are.
As I recall, it was reappointing people as a slate that we were opposed to, that we wanted to appoint people individually, not as the slate, and that was how it got that. And there was some concern about who wanted to be reappointed, who didn't want to be reappointed at the first meeting.
All right, but Kim's position was the one that Dan was gonna replace. And you didn't want, so you guys wanted Kim, so. I
think there was more to it.
I think it was too.
I don't remember, but there was more to it. But we welcome Dan. Bring him on. I welcome him. Please appoint him.
Any more questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Hi.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Brian, manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and board members. Not a lot to share tonight. Just we are working on an addition to Delta Now that we hope to have finalized and put out this week, which will have some public information on the bond millage also, which is why we've kind of delayed it to push out. Secondly, trustee Brewer and I attended a meeting last week of the regional Juneteenth committee. Marilyn Rogers Group, who does the Juneteenth festivals in Lansing, just to meet with other regional partners in terms of getting on the same page of what everybody is doing. So as this board had asked that we put together at least a couple events to supplement the region, but not to compete with the main activities going on that Lansing heads up. But right now, at this point, we do have the Black History Mobile Museum is slated on the evening of June 15th. So that's a traveling museum with education artifacts representing the history of slavery in America. I've actually seen it before. It's been in this area before, so that's a nice thing. Our library has helped with that. So we have folks from the library and also on our EDC working on some different things. And we're trying to put something also together with some businesses in the mall that I don't have anything to report on that yet, but so there's a lot of exciting things in the whole region that will go on over that week and longer. A lot of music and jazz festivals and other different things, a 5K run, walk and roll. There's an art competition. So a lot of different events that will help highlight as they will help highlight ours as well. So and then last but not least, thank you for attending the ribbon cutting for the locker rooms, and it sounds like it was really well received. So really appreciate the work of Waverly Schools and their partnership in terms of doing those. And then I know Marcus and his staff, Lee Miller and Damon Roberson, the aquatics guru, put a lot of work into those and helping to design, and sat through a lot of design meetings on that. So I really applaud them for all their work on that as well. So and appreciate, as always, the board support in terms of working with our partners at Waverly as well.
Andrea?
Brian, I guess really for the board to share with all of you, but Brian as well. Thanks for the update on the Juneteenth planning. I did want to share, there's legislation that's been introduced to make Juneteenth a state holiday. I know we've made it one with the township. It's Senate Bill 50. And there was a hearing on it on Wednesday. I don't know if that's something the board might want to take a formal position or not, but I just wanted to share that that legislation is moving, and thought it'd be of interest to everyone, since you were sharing the planning work that's being done for this year.
Yeah, thank you.
What committee has it?
Oh, it's a long name. It's a newer committee. I think it's like civil rights, something. It's a long name. It's one of the newer combined committees, so it's the Senate committee. Sorry, I don't remember the formal name of the committee though. Civil rights, criminal justice, and maybe something else.
I love that, and if there can be support from us in some way. I hope that we might do that, but I'm in full support of that as a state holiday.
I know that wasn't a part of the agenda, so maybe I should have brought that up at another point, but I'm happy to submit a card on behalf of the township if that's helpful.
I think that'd be fine.
Yeah,
Please.
okay.
Please do.
Yes, any other questions for Brian? Great, thanks, Brian. We move to the committee of the whole. We have the building department report. Matt.
Will you read the bill number when you're there? Just when you do it. The bill number. What is it?
5050.
All right, bear with me here for a moment. Thank you, Supervisor Fletcher, board members. I'm sure this won't be too long, but there's a lot of slides to go through here. Basically, the overview of what we do, which I think you all pretty much know. Anywhere from code enforcement, rental inspections, trade inspections. Change of occupancy inspections, which we've been getting a lot more of, where we try to catch businesses before they move in to make sure there's not any issues with the building prior to them opening. We put in a little bit of each of the members, because some of you don't know all the members of my staff and some of our qualifications, licenses. We've got people that have been here from 25 years plus to a couple months. Just a list of the different improvements we've issued over the years. And for this last year, we had a total of 3,000 and some, which was up a little bit, I believe. Yeah. Of about 1,000. All the numbers are here showing you the value of permits, and then anytime if somebody's got a question about someone, I realize these are a lot of numbers and figures. If you have any questions, please interrupt me. As you can see, their value of construction went up considerably for 2022, which shouldn't be surprising with the amount of projects going on around the township and the large projects.
So Matt, would Altium and Amazon both be in 22's numbers?
Altium would be, I believe Amazon might have been.
It's already gone.
I think they were started in 2021, so they would have been in
Yeah.
the 2021. And here's just a comparison. The different permits by month. The online permits certainly we're seeing an increase But we have seen them come down a little bit once the restrictions of COVID came, kind of quit. People are coming back into the office, but still most of the contractors really appreciate the online permitting that we've installed.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
It seems like there's a lot of activity on each one of these in October. Is that a trend? Is there an explanation for that?
People trying to get stuff done before the weather.
Before
turns.
winter? Okay,
Mhm. We
that makes sense.
always get an uptick.
Mhm.
This just gives you the fees. Comparison for each year.
On the fees,
Mhm.
do those cover the costs for the department?
Yes. For the most part, yes.
Okay,
2020. It did not, but
just because they had dropped, the activity had dropped?
yeah,
Yeah, but
With-
I guess I just meant more generally, are the
typically the fees do. cover the
fees
cost of the
covering
park.
the level of work that you're doing? And
Mhm.
okay,
The amount of inspections we did. Here's some examples of new projects, which I'm sure you're all aware of, and I know everybody's waiting for the Olive Garden to open.
And when would that be?
Right.
Since that's the most common question that I'm asked
Yeah.
anywhere I go.
I don't know. I would imagine,
According to Facebook, they said June. People were saying, I don't know if that's based on.
They
anything.
know what.
it's probably gonna be at least June. They had run into weather issues when they first started, and they're still playing catch up, but they're moving along.
We haven't been given an official date. So.
Here's some other projects we had. Not a lot of people have access, could see the nice new educational building that the Sportsman's League built. They're gonna have classes for young kids and stuff in there. And then the self-storage everybody's seen. This slide needs no introduction. Couple of our businesses that went in existing buildings. And here's our rentals. We peaked in kind of in 2014, but now, as you can see, we're back and have more rental units than we did in 2011. Since we started the program.
where's the growth been in the rental program? Do you know, has that been in like multifamily and duplexes, or are people renting out?
In both,
Single.
I mean, like we have Redwood that grew. And we had a Morgan Creek subdivision that a builder went in there and they built a bunch of new homes and they're all rentals.
Oh,
So we're seeing more now that for a while, we'll see with the interest rates now, but people were getting rid of their rentals. Well, now they were buying them back. And so it goes up and down, but the economy takes a big hit on it one way or the other.
but we're not losing. Is there any concern like we're losing a lot of single family housing to rentals?
I haven't seen a whole lot of them.
Okay,
I've seen brand new ones be built strictly
that
for rentals,
purpose.
but
yeah,
most people that bought their houses are keeping them at this point. So
okay,
I haven't seen a big rise in that.
okay, thank you.
So Matt, on this, when you talk about the ones that did not comply or receive certification, that 58 and 815, what happens then?
Then they eventually get red tag, yellow tagged, red tagged until they come into compliance.
Okay.
Since COVID, there's been a lot more problem properties where they don't want to comply. And some of them have gotten more run down because during COVID and all the rules where you couldn't evict people, they couldn't collect rent. Well, if you own a property and you're not collecting rent, a lot of them didn't want to put money back into the property because it just kept getting ruined again. So it's made it rough for code enforcement and for the rental program. But they're starting to get everything straightened around and come back. As you can see, our enforcement total signs are usually always the biggest ones. Blight has gone up. And that's just of different statuses of current enforcements. Tickets that have been written up. Tickets usually, that's when we get non-compliance, they get to the point where they will write tickets or take them to court.
Matt, those numbers seem low, because I know code compliance is one of the biggest complaints that have been a huge increase. You know, I know during the time I've been supervisor, the number of people who are calling to complain about properties that they're seeing and stuff seems to be on the rise. Yet those numbers look fairly low.
Those are, we try not to write tickets if we don't have to. We try to get compliance prior to writing the tickets. It's usually if we're not getting any cooperation whatsoever and they're not improving or at least trying to improve it, that's when a ticket gets written. And some tickets are probably not show up because if they do write a ticket and they comply within the time, they null and void it. And so those aren't in those numbers.
Just as long as that I know it's a question that we, debated before. I know we do a lot of things on complaint basis and stuff, but I know that the complaints are increasing, that people are feeling that the township is not being maintained as it once was.
Yeah, and you could, if in the previous slide, you notice the last 2 years, the enforcements went way up. 2021 is when we started being more proactive instead of just doing complaint basis like we've done for years. So we are actively seeking it. It's just a little bit more than what it used to be because 18 months, 2 years, people being home. The rental properties are usually some of our biggest complaints. So we're working on it. Unfortunately, I don't want to blame COVID, but we got a ways to go to get back to where we were. But we're actively working on it. And one of the things that's also helping us is our new employee we hired in November is a plumbing inspector, but he's also helping with code enforcement, rental inspections. So we've got a third person to help us get back to where we want to be.
And this actually, it shows a 50% increase. I mean, if you look at the numbers, but.
Matt, do we recoup our attorney's fees, legal fees from if we have to go to court?
I don't know.
I just see some
Wait,
repeat
well,
offenders on here, so I'm just wondering if we do have to go to court.
Typically, Kelly goes to the court. We don't turn it over to the attorney unless it's a major issue. So typically, we don't have many lawyer fees, attorney fees. Kelly and Sean put the cases together. They go to the hearings and they do most of the work. So it's, we've only had a couple where we've had to get the attorneys involved.
But when we do we ask for the fees to be returned to the township? I don't know if that's
I don't,
I don't
common
think we
or
have.
Yeah.
doable.
we'd have to look into that. We haven't, I guess on the enforcements, we really haven't had a lot of legal bills. Probably our biggest expenses if we do abatement or demolition, which goes onto their taxes, which
Right.
sometime in the future we might get reimbursed. Usually we do take some loss on that unless it's a valuable property, but
Especially with the law change that says that the county has to return. Counties are handling that type of process much differently now, where before they sort of had a pool of money that they would use to reimburse, but now they have to return money to the homeowner. Homeowner process is very different, so we demo something and it doesn't sell for that, they charge us back.
Mm.
So we do have to be aware that we're gonna be putting out of pocket from the demoler, whereas, or the county's pool would just cover it.
But can we put a lien on the property so that,
And it gets, but if it goes into foreclosure and they only sell it for $100, there was $10,000 in taxes, we have to pay the county back. That's done twice
Doesn't sound fair.
because they didn't sell it for what.
was
amount.
owed?
so we can look into it, but
Yeah.
as I say, on most of these cases, we really have not incurred much legal costs, and any legal cost is usually kind of discussing our tools or our policies and trying to get compliance, but and it's but once they get to court or going to the magistrate, it's more so time and staff resources trying to, once they get that bad, it just takes a long time to work through the process and.
Thank you.
Well, I'm ahead of you on slides. I'll wait.
Well, I can move on if you want.
Well, I just want to talk about the Marcy. Oh, I moved on to the Marcy house.
Okay,
But you do yours.
Yeah, I've kind of talked about the post-pandemic, the code enforcement has been tremendous much more work for everybody. And we do get complaints daily and we've been following up on them and sometimes and you may get a complaint or they'll call us and they'll complain about something and when it turns out it's really not a violation of our ordinance, but just because people don't like it doesn't mean it's a violation. Okay, we're on Marcy.
Okay, so on Marcy, we got the ruling that we could demolish, which we did.
Mhm.
But so we have an expense with that we just sit on until the property sells and then we may or may not recoup it now under the new system. Is that what you're saying, Courtney?
So we invoice them, they don't pay it,
Right,
we put it on the tax.
right.
So it sits on the tax bill and the county pays us back. This example, we will get the money back here in a couple weeks from the county. But then if it goes into foreclosure, right now that's not in. But it probably will now because that big bill will go through its greater process. At the end of that, they only make $5,000, then we'll owe them back. And they assess this abatement. Or about, I mean.
Cause you can see what went into getting this house demolished. We tried to work with them. It was just a problem property from day one. It finally got to the point where we had to,
Was this a rental or was this an owner?
just an
occupied?
abandoned
Oh,
This
abandoned.
was an empty house.
Okay.
So we're gonna face that same thing then on this canal house when we are able to take it down.
That's been scheduled. And these are processed when that Marcy house was demoed and then the final product.
How much does a demolition typically cost?
It varies. It's, we've had them, that's like a last resort. We've had them from 10,000 to 50,000. And then the biggest thing is if there's asbestos, so.
Or we had one on South Waverly that we had some pretty outrageous bids for, and then that went into foreclosure before we acted on it. So it actually went to the county, but that had buried fuel tanks
Mhm.
and that type of thing. So that would have had a substantial cost to cleaning that property up.
Wow.
In progress pictures of this property and cleaned up. This is one of our properties on Clark Road.
I'm assuming you hear from neighbors when you're doing these cleanups.
They love us.
I would think so. I would hope so. It is amazing seeing the photos.
These places were in pretty bad shape.
Yes.
I imagine they're probably equally challenged inside as out.
Yeah, you can see in this slide, that one picture, that's the ceiling caving in. The top center. This is the one up here on Canal.
Yeah, I noticed the other day that the garage door is coming off again too.
But it's
Front door
scheduled.
is wide open.
It is scheduled for the end of the month to be done. I sent Sean up there today to secure the front door again.
Yeah, I noticed that.
They kick in
yesterday.
the front door and then. The one picture right here, he's boarding up the back and then they tear the plywood off. He's been there half a dozen times.
So is it homeless doing that, do you think? Well, it's certainly not the owner, because she isn't even in the area, is she?
Homeless or kids.
Hmm.
It's hard to say. Nobody's been able to catch them while they're there. There we go.
Could you
Thank you.
Any
go back to
questions?
the goals? We didn't talk about the goals, but I was reading through it about you're
Oh, okay.
creating a new program, couple of programs to be proactive, like you said, instead of just reactive to complaints. That one with the bullseye.
That one?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, we're looking at different things to try to keep track to give us a better idea, what properties we have. Trying to keep an eye on the vacant properties. And so we're looking at a lot of different things right now, trying to come up with a better way to keep track.
Is there any thought to prevention or, preventing something from getting to the point where it is a blight and it's falling apart and that sort of thing? I mean, I know you're working with people with compliance and, sometimes these things take time to get the money to do this. But do you engage in those kinds of things?
Yeah, and that's kind of why we're looking at getting
Mhm.
a database of the vacant properties and the properties that could, start to become, so we have kind of an idea of where to, start but that's in the process. We're looking forward to that.
Great.
It's just right now, that's moving a little slow. We're just trying to take care of what we can as much as we can.
Mhm.
At the moment, but we're looking at all different things all the time to try to improve code enforcement. It's just a struggle sometimes.
Well, yeah, and just to improve safety and living conditions, of
Yes,
course. You
and,
know.
and every time we have to do a court case, it takes a lot of hours putting it together and luckily Kelly and Sean, they go in and they win. They get their judgment pretty much every time. So,
Great job.
Thank you.
any other questions?
Yeah, where do the two, I'll call them our courthouses fall in enforcement and what's gonna happen with them?
The what?
The two Mark courthouses,
On St. Joe.
Joe.
Right now, we do have a demo permit for the one that caught on fire. I have been in talks with auto owners. Their plans are to tear down all the buildings. At the moment, I believe the house that caught on fire and the one garage has got a hole in the roof, they're gonna be taking down shortly. They've already applied for the demo permit. So, yeah, I'm in active conversations with auto owners, with the demo contractor on that property.
Here's how the old house, not the one that caught fire, how could that be allowed to sit like that? We looked at the Marcy house and others that were abandoned. The house pretty much has been abandoned forever.
We tend to pick the worst of the worst and start there. And it's that is on the list also, and they've been made aware of that, so there's some things that need to be gotten out of there before they can demo it, but that is on their list of things to do. And if you saw up close to the other properties that we've been talking about, you would understand why that one hasn't been hit as hard as the other one.
Yeah, there's no holes in the roof or anything like that. I don't think that you
Not
can
that
see.
I'm aware of.
Right.
But Kelly and Sean are basically hit the worst of the worst. Let's get those. And each case takes time.
Okay, great. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. We appreciate it. Any final thing from anybody on the board? No final public comment? Any public? We'll see no further business before us. We are adjourned.
I can get out while it's light, while I see.
Mm.
I have a question for you.